Just at Weather Echo, 32 years at NOAA. We're here to talk about, on this Weather Insight, much above average temperatures, March heat wave, and potentially record high temperatures. Let's talk about what's going on here on this latest update. Okay, there's been a lot of talk about ENSO, La Nina, El Nino, and a rapid transition. Well, it's not rapidly transitioning, it's gradually transitioning, and this is very normal. We can see warmer than normal water is surging up South America along the coast there, which will eventually displace all the cooler water in blue there. That was the La Nina that started this winter. Now the forecasts are on the right hand side, El Nino and La Nina. So as you can see, most predictions are for weak to moderate. There's no predictions as of yet of extreme or even major or strong level El Nino. So basically, we are in neutral conditions right now. This shows the same thing. So the panel on the right-hand side shows the transition. We've been in a prolonged weak La Nina, or the cold phase. Now there is some warming as shown in the bottom area, and that's the water you've seen warm along the South America coast. So again, overall weak conditions in La Nina, and we're transitioning into neutral. This is very normal to do this time of year. Okay, what's been going on the past 2 weeks? As shown here, very dry conditions in the west and southwest after a big major storm occurred back in February. We've seen some wet conditions in the middle of the country as shown here. Now for temperatures, it's been warm across really all the United States, the lower 48, warmest in the south as shown here. This is the past 2 weeks. Now if we look at the water year, this is important for fire weather, water supply. So we see conditions have been wet in California, especially South Central California, and the far northern plains and far northern Rockies. But most of the country, the south and east, has been drier than normal. Really dry across much of Texas. Now, for the warmth, it's been a coin. So on one side of the coin, the warmest conditions and very warm have been over the Great Basin, much above normal, and colder, quite a bit colder than normal in the northeast as shown here. So a very persistent pattern has been going on, not just since February, but all the way back since the fall. The snowpack, which is important for our water supply, of course. So the snowpack has been up and down. I pointed at some areas that are really dry, like the Southern Cascade, the Central Rockies as shown here, the Southern Rockies. Now, in California, it's been a mixed bag. We got up to about normal with 110 inches at Palisades back in February, but now we're slipping below normal. And the northern Sierra Nevada, they're in the same boat as the Southern Cascades. That area has been particularly dry, and that's extended across northern Nevada into northern Utah, as shown here, and even northern Colorado. All those areas are much below average with snowpack. Now, of course, the northeast, with the lake effect snow, and also with the winter storms, they are above average in snowpack in a lot of places, like in northern New York, as shown here. Okay, what's the weather pattern that's going to bring us these hot temperatures and record hot temperatures? Upper level ridge, simple as that. So every weather pattern has a upper trough, an upper ridge, low pressure, high pressure, depending how you want to call it. But this is the jet stream or the storm track. So we've got a storm moving through the northeast as shown here the next couple days. And behind that is an upper level ridge building over the west coast. Now, not shown completely, we also have a storm moving over Hawaii. We'll talk a little bit about that. So trough, ridge, trough. This upper dome of heat wave is going to provide these really warm temperatures the next few days and may extend longer, as we'll show. Now, as we go into this weekend, we can see the upper ridge starts to break down. And that's because a weak weather disturbance from the Pacific drifts to the California coast. Everything else is going up and over the ridge as shown here. So we do have a couple weather disturbances that are moving across the northern part of the United States as shown here, and through the Great Lakes. So this upper ridge is what's important for these heat waves or these heat domes. So it's not the sun angle, it's not the time of the year, it's these air masses that move across and into our region. Now, look what happens here next week. So that upper ridge reforms and strengthens along the Eastern Pacific and the West Coast. So weekends, this weekend, next weekend, it strengthens. So this means an extended heat wave. And this is for the mountains, for the valleys, the coast, and of course, the deserts. So this upper ridge could be with us all through next week, as shown here, as storms are going up and over into the Great Lakes and the Northeast, as shown here. So this major heat dome is what's going to bring this extended period of hot temperatures. Okay, I did mention about Hawaii. We are looking at significant storms out in that area, atmospheric rivers, at least a couple of them. So the first one is developing now and is going to spread precipitation into the Pacific Northwest. I got an arrow on the left-hand side pointed to that. And then we have a stronger, broader, more powerful atmospheric river that's going to form in Hawaii and bring them heavy rain again and then move up into the British Columbia. Now this one tracks further north. Why? Because the upper ridge I showed you in the prior slides rebuilds along the west coast early next week. So this trough and ridge pattern, that's where the moisture follows and that's where the cold and warm air follows. Simple as that. That's the jet stream and the storm track. And one leads to another. So when you get a deep storm like this in Hawaii with all this moisture and precipitation forming, that induces an upper level ridge, makes it even stronger out ahead of it. So imagine all the energy that gets released from these storms as they suck in the water vapor, make clouds, make precipitation. That produces, on the other side of the storm, really warm, dry conditions and sinking air. So they work together, even though it's hard to imagine that when you're in a heat wave, that somewhere it's raining like crazy or really cold or there's a lot of energy somewhere further upstream or downstream. Okay, precipitation amounts are expected to be large, especially in the Pacific Northwest, as shown here. We've got some areas of 10, 15, maybe locally 20 inches. Olympic Peninsula, the Cascades. So high snow levels and really heavy rain in this area over the next week or so. Now we see this big bubble over the west, the white area. That's because that's the dominant upper level ridge, the sinking dry air. So we're in between. And then you see the East Coast where it remains quite active with severe weather and storms along the East Coast as shown here. So a dry period and a warm period for all the west and southwest. Okay, the extended outlook looks like this. So we can see that atmospheric river out of Hawaii, one after another, moving up into British Columbia. That's the storm track. And then curling over the upper level ridge because they work together, remember, and then down into the northeast United States. So the bottom line is a big anomaly or big dome of warm air, warmer than usual for the next week or two in the west, as shown on the right-hand side. And dry conditions with the heavy rain in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, that precipitation tapers off in the Pacific Northwest, but it looks like it hangs out still in Hawaii. That has been the pattern most of this winter. Now, for temperatures, we see a shift in the upper ridge in the upper right-hand corner here for late March and early April. And so that's the heat dome moving from the Eastern Pacific to over the Rockies and then maybe into the plains and then eventually dissipating a little bit. We continue to see cool and warm air battling in the Northeast, as shown here with the blue and the orange red. So any hope for precipitation? It's going to have to come later in March and early April. As you see in the lower left-hand side, there's some indication that a little bit of breakthrough from the tropics could bring some precipitation into the west, as shown here. And then the Pacific Northwest, they're going to need a break after this series of atmospheric rivers. All right, everyone. Hope you found this weather insight useful. More information can be found on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, X, and Threads, live information. And we also post weather blogs regularly as well, which recaps past weather, current weather, and also predicted weather. Hope you enjoyed, everyone. Stay safe, stay cool. This is a serious heat wave coming up for the Southwest and much of the West over the next couple of weeks. Even though the calendar says March, we're talking about temperatures in the 90s, temperatures exceeding 100 across all of our deserts in the Southwest. Take care, everyone.